Despite what people think, her first actual conceptual appearance isn't what most people would point to. It was actually in an old Sonic manga series, dating all the way back to 1992. She had a completely different design, in which her fur colour is brown, and she sports a yellow sweater that has the letter E on it, green skirt and red shoes. Her role in the manga is nearly identical to how she would be portrayed in the games, being the love interest and girlfriend to Sonic, who goes by the alter ego of a schoolboy named Nicky in this universe. A year later, she made her first ever game appearance in Sonic CD. Established in the background story as the love interest to Sonic, her tarot card reading made her destined to follow Sonic wherever he goes. When Sonic goes to Palm Tree Panic, assuming that the player remains in the present day, Amy is there waiting at the end of the level to give him a hug. Their little moment together was short-lived, however, as Metal Sonic kidnaps Amy, putting Sonic in a quest to rescue her. He ends up freeing Amy in the end and brings her to safety. Since her debut in Sonic CD, she makes a handful of spin-off appearances during the classic era. This includes Sonic Drift, Sonic the Fighters, which marks the first appearance of Amy's iconic Pico Pico hammer to make up for her lack of physical prowess, and Sonic R, which serves as the final game and send-off to the classic era. Despite making a number of appearances in the classic era, many people, and maybe you watching this video, would argue that Amy really wasn't all that important during this era, and frankly, you would actually be right. Sonic CD was not all that popular in its initial release, being released on the less popular Sega CD add-on, and Amy's role was pretty minuscule and easy to miss, being regulated to a plot device and something for the players to strive for. Her spin-off game appearances were due to how limited the stories and characters were, and since all those games had virtually every single character that has appeared in at least one game prior, it would make sense that Amy would show up to fill the growing roster of fighters and racers. Her reputation she had in the series at this time was being just a little girl that loved Sonic. Her love for Sonic can also make her come off as a little naive, thinking that she'll be destined to be with him forever through a single tarot card reading. But given how naivety is a common trait among girls her age, as we even see with some characters that would be introduced later on, that's to be expected. If this is all there was to Amy, all these discussions and character portrayal debates surrounding her probably wouldn't exist. She'll just be known as that girl from that one forgotten Sega CD game that had a massive crush on Sonic, and since the Sonic universe wasn't fully established yet, that'd be fine as is. The stories weren't all that deep back then, and Amy's character didn't need to be either. But if you can tell by the length of this video, that was never going to be the case, because with the new generation of gaming up ahead, this was the perfect opportunity for the Sonic series to officially make its splash into the third dimension, albeit one that wouldn't be a total flop, which meant that the stories, games, and characters have to be changed and rejuvenated to fit into this new generation. Sonic Adventure was released as the flagship title for the Sega Dreamcast in December 1998. The game had 6 playable characters. Big and Gamma were new characters, and the inclusion was pretty much expected since every new subsequent game prior has introduced a new character or two. Each of the existing cast has been given updated designs. Sonic, Tails and Knuckles were given relatively minor changes from their classic counterparts, with taller and slimmer proportions as well as their coloured irises for their eyes. Eggman also got the same treatment, as well as being given a different outfit altogether, but he still maintained his iconic egg-shaped figure and coloured scheme. Amy's inclusion in the playable cast was the most surprising in my opinion. Given her small role in the classic era, it seemed like the writers must surely have a lot of plans with Amy going forward, which was enough for them to choose her over practically anyone else from the classic games. Amy had the most drastic change from her classic design, and I think it is vastly superior, and I really wouldn't have it any other way. While Amy's classic design is cute and certainly has its charm, and her classic counterpart has recently gotten a bit of resurgence thanks to Sonic Mania Adventures and Sonic Superstars, but on surface level it really just was a stereotypical looking pink Sonic with a dress. Her modern design instead goes away with the Minnie Mouse look, and is instead given a red dress, headband and boots, along with gold bracelets, also simplifying her colour scheme to 2 primary colours, being red and pink, which goes well together like PB and J, and is generally more pleasing to the eye. The red just pops out, given how much of a strong colour it is, symbolising her bold and feminine personality, and is also the colour associated with love, which again symbolises Amy's character and her love for Sonic. Her quills were also reworked to be shaped downwards, and the ones on her back are removed. Because of this, some would argue that this makes Amy look more like a cat than a hedgehog. This change has given Amy quite a recognisable and iconic look, differentiating her silhouette, which I firmly believe to be a core part of making a good character design. You may come across some people online that will try to argue that this is a bad design, but like almost everything in life, some people are wrong. Seeing this whole outfit really takes me back to women's fashion in the 1960s. I used to watch the great Clement's playthrough of the Sonic series back in the day and still remember how he described Amy's modern design to be a callback of the swinging 60s, with the huge go-go boots, the headband, gloves, the dresses girls wore. It all comes together. Now I've been agreeing with that sentiment ever since, which probably also explains my taste as well and might say a lot about me personally. Because after all, Amy was designed and modelled to represent what her creator admired in women at the time. This is without a doubt the best redesign I've seen, not only in the Sonic series but in any game, TV show or movie period. The fact that they took a design that may come off as generic to many people and mould it into something more memorable and iconic is simply astonishing. I would even go as far to say that this is peak character design, and I don't think there will be any other design that will change that. It is just that perfect to me. So enough about her design. What is her characterization like, if there is any? Sonic Adventure has a fully fledged story, all with full voice acting and script, that is told within the perspectives of the 6 playable characters, in which Amy has her own dedicated story that will occasionally intertwine with Sonic and friends. The first cutscene in her story establishes Amy to be a resident in Station Square, where she daydreams and reminisces about her times of being part of Sonic's adventures, calling back to her rescue in Sonic CD. She longs for the thrill of adventure, clearly missing those days, now that her life is so boring with nothing to do other than shopping her heart away. It was at this moment where she stumbles upon a stray bird that has been running away from an Eggman robot named Zero. This marks the whole plot of Amy's story, which is to reunite the bird to its parents, all in a while protecting it and herself from Zero's clutches. Her natural instinct is to go to Sonic for protection, which ultimately leads to Sonic acting all bamboozled upon her encounter. I guess this reaction would be pretty understandable from Sonic's perspective, as well as people that have only played Sonic's story up until this point, because at this point in Sonic's story, Amy has never shown up in the story beforehand, and also for the fact that Sonic had just been separated from Tails upon attempting to go on board the egg carrier, not to mention that only Sonic's story is playable in the beginning, so Amy showing up out of nowhere to demand him to act as a bodyguard to her may seem like a huge shock that not even Sonic himself could contain. I also think that Sonic's reaction seemed a little more overdramatic on Amy's side, establishing Amy's unrequited feelings towards Sonic, thus the unique dynamic they have with one another. Regardless, Amy still tags along with Sonic anyway, but this ends up in Amy getting captured by Zero. The fact that Amy gets captured once again in the series may seem like a repeat of her damsel in distress role in Sonic CD, and normally in stories like these, the damsel in distress becomes inactive in the story and you don't see her again until the end where the hero rescues her. But as we know, this is the Sonic series we're talking about, the biggest rival to Mario, and unlike Princess Peach and many other damsel in distress stories in fiction, we actually see what happens to Amy. One incarcerated in the egg carrier, Amy meets another one of Eggman's E-series robots, E102 Gamma, where they have a little moment together. This scene displays a much more sweet and empathetic side to Amy. Seeing how Gamma isn't programmed to have feelings gave Amy the opportunity to get through to the robot's cold and non-existent heart, using her words of empathy, begging the robot to break free from Eggman's control. Gamma ends up freeing Amy due to the flicky causing an inner conflict with Gamma's programming, and thus sparks a friendship and unbreakable bond between the two. So much so to where Amy saves him from being converted into scrap metal. Once again, this would also be surprising to see when playing through Sonic's story alone, but as we see with Amy's story, as Amy says herself, Gamma is not like the other robots and she is simply returning the favour. I also want to briefly talk about her theme song. Each of the main characters has been given their own theme song to reflect their journey in the story, as well as their own unique personalities. Amy's theme song is My Sweet Passion, performed by Nikki Gregoroff, and a lot of people in the fandom don't really like this song, mainly due to how creepy the lyrics are. It surprises me how they even approved this song in the first place, which is something that even the person that wrote the song was shocked about too, as she didn't expect the song to turn out so sexy and bizarre to the American audience, let alone the reaction they get from them. Regardless, while the song isn't anywhere near my favourites in the series, and I certainly don't listen to it that much, if ever outside of playing these games. I honestly love the instrumentals. The jazzy, groovy, funky bass line along with the loud trumpets, saxophones and drums makes this song such a blast to listen to, ignoring the weird lyrics. I think the loud, bombastic instruments resemble her bold and cheerful personality quite nicely, and the line where she'll always be there for him in the best and worst times and being the sweetest honey of all eternity, I think fits Amy and her love for Sonic extremely well. The song has been used quite a lot in this series, the most out of any character theme. It's used in the game's sequel, Sonic and the Black Knight, as well as the Sega Superstar spin-off games. It's last used in the Sonic and the Olympic Games mobile port, but other than that, its usage has been reduced quite drastically since the last decade, and I think it would be a bit of a disservice to retire the song altogether, considering they pretty much made an entirely new theme for Amy recently in Sonic Frontiers in regards of reinventing the character, although whether that reinvention was worth it is still entirely up for debate. Still, I hope that the instrumental version at the very least gets remixed or reused in some capacity, since the song itself has been quite a synonymous part of her character for the longest time. And with that, we've already reached the end of this decade. Overall, Amy's beginnings were as humble as you expect. She didn't start off much, as she was pretty much a background character in the classic games, being just the girl character that more so happens to love the main hero, much like how Princess Peach is to Mario. However, by the late 90s, Amy's character has been reworked in order to give her more depth and backstory. Her role in Sonic Adventure feels exactly how I imagined a slightly aged up Amy to be. She still maintains her sweet and childlike personality present in the classic era, but on top of that, she also displays a level of empathy, which is something we've never quite seen in her character before, and I think fits and complements her character quite nicely. Amy being the sweet, happy little girl that sees the best in others, I feel helps her stand out among the cast of superheroes and villains that dominate the stories overrun by creatures of destruction. Her empathy doesn't always work, however, as she was forced into beating Zero into submission after the latter severely injures the Flickies while realizing that she just couldn't use the power of her words this time round. If you played through Gamma's story, you'll come to notice that the pink Flicky was powering Gamma the whole time, as after all of Eggman's robots are powered by the small animals that Sonic saves by destroying the badniks or cracking open the capsule at the end of each level. Both Gamma and his brother Beta were destroyed after their fight on the egg carrier, which in return releases the Flickies, powering them, safely intertwining with Amy's story of reuniting the Flickies and bringing Gamma's arc of freeing himself from Eggman's control to a close. Despite the slight age up from her classic counterpart, now being a 12-year-old girl instead of an 8-year-old girl, the naivety and childlike traits her classic counterpart had has been carried over here, as seen with the cutscene where Sonic and Amy are walking together. Amy decides to go into Twinkle Park because she saw a sign that says that cute couples can get in free. But as I mentioned earlier about these traits being extremely common among girls her age, that's to be expected from her. At the end of her story, Amy vows to be the one that will make Sonic turn for her, feeling that she has accomplished her journey of being fully independent from his help, which may also tease into what the future would hold for her, because as great as her first major game outing may be, this is only just the beginning. With a whole decade of games and external media up ahead, the world is her oyster, and who knows what will happen to our beloved pink hedgehog. So join me next time as I'll go through her appearances in the 2000s, which I'm really looking forward to, because to put it lightly, this was such a bold period for her, to say the very least. Would this be for the better or for worse? Only one way to find out.